Hey y'all, it's Kelly from Dixie Darlings, and today I'm starting with a 40-ounce skinny mug from Craft Haven. And I wanted to fit this entire pattern on a cup, y'all. So this 40-ounce skinny mug was perfect for it, and I wanted to go through cutting vinyl on handle. So this is a Thanksgiving 16 pattern from the Vinyl Cottage. That's the number that you would look up. And I'm just showing you, I'm just laying this down, and I'm taking my craft knife and I'm cutting it right along the edge of the handle, if you can see. So I'm just going to take little notches out. You see where I just, like, right where the vinyl was placed on there, I place my craft knife and I just run it up each side of the handle. So it creates these little notches right here, and then I just trim those off. So they're very, very tiny. I want to have extra. I would rather go back and cut them off after the fact. So then I'm going to go in, and once I know that it's square on the cup, I'm going to trim off just a little bit of that back, and you can see now it's going to fit perfectly right here. The notches are going to be where the handle is, and then it's also going to be lined up on the cup when I put those notches right on the handle where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and press that down on the cup, that little strip that I've cut off of vinyl right there, of the backing where the vinyl will lay. That's got it attached to the cup, and then I'm going to turn the cup over and I'm going to take that backing right where I've cut it back there, you can see right there, and I'm going to pull it off, and you can see this one little notch right there was still on there, but I'm going to pull that off, and then I'm going to turn the cup back over, and I'm going to continue to press the vinyl onto the cup. And then once I make sure that it's pretty square on the cup and the seams are going to line up correctly, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just continue to press the vinyl down on the cup, and it's going to peel that backing off as I press it around. You guys, if you've seen me wrap vinyl before, you know I kind of usually hold it with one hand, and then I take my other finger and I rub it down the side as I go around. So here there's just a couple little bubbles, and I was going to show you guys that that's all you have to do is if you get air bubbles in here, I'm not exempt from this either. Mine get bubbles in them. I just take my craft knife, and if you just barely touch it, if your craft knife is really sharp, that's all it takes, and you can just press them right out with your finger. And I'm just going to work my way around. I try to make sure that the top and the bottom are going like I want them to. And then once I get it wrapped around, you can see the edge is still there. I'm going to take my painter's tape just like I do with a cup that does not have a handle on it. And I'm just going to take little pieces of tape, and yes, you could go ahead and cut this, and you think it's behind the handle and all that stuff, but I like to lay mine right on the edge of the handle, my vinyl, where that seam is kind of like, you kind of see where my seam is, it's like right there on the edge of the handle. So I want this seam to be straight. So yes, I could just kind of go down through there and trim it. It takes a little bit of time to go cut the tape and lay it down, but for me, that's just the best way, as always, that I can assure that it's straight. So you can see I pull the backing off of it, and I'm just going to go ahead and press it down here, and I'm going to do the same thing I did when I cut it at the beginning. You can see I'm just taking my craft knife, and you see I just run it right, I'm pressing it up against that handle, and I'm just cutting that right off right where the handle is, and then I take that, same thing. So I literally am just taking my craft knife and pressing it on the handle and cutting those little notches out. And I do this kind of like one piece at a time. So you can kind of see I just cut the little edges off. I'm going to go down and I'm going to cut this little seam just the same way as I did the other. And by running it right on the edge of the handle, it doesn't create the seam kind of under the handle where it's hard to cut. I found that it's like hard to cut if you try to create that seam in the middle there. It's much easier if you just run it right along the side, and then everything is straight right in line with your handle right there. And then, as always, that I do, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to pull the top of the vinyl all the way around the cup, and then I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm going to trim off the excess there as well. And then on the bottom, this sheet does not leave a lot to be desired at the bottom of this cup, y'all. This is a big cup. I actually love it. I thought it was a little big, but once I got this wrapped and I saw like how it took the whole pattern, I just really fell in love with it. So after I've gotten the top trimmed off and my seams run down through there and everything's trimmed off nicely, I am going to go in and I'm just going to pull that vinyl around the bottom. Now, a lot of times I cut this right inside. You can see that little ridge in the cup. This one, I'm going to have to cut it out a little bit because it just did not want to lay very well because there wasn't enough excess vinyl there. So I'm going to trim it kind of right in the middle of that bottom rim. So it's still pulling around and coming on the bottom, but I'm going to have to create a circle there that covers the bottom a little bit wider, because I did not want any issues with that vinyl. I did not want it to be you know, creased up. It was going to present a problem, so I just trimmed it a little bit farther out than normal. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paint my handle. So I'm just taping this off. Same painter's tape that I use to trim, you know, I just reuse that tape over and over again, y'all. So you can see I'm just covering. I'm going to put a piece at the top, and then I'm also going to cut a piece that fits right in the handle there, so that covers that up really well underneath there. And then I'm actually going to just take some plastic wrap and I'm going to wrap it around the rest of the cup instead of having to take the cup, tape the entire cup off. It's just easier. I did want to tape this area because it's kind of hard to get plastic wrap to lay right in there. So I usually tape off around my handle, and then you also have the tape there so the plastic wrap can kind of stick to that if it doesn't want to stick to the cup very well. You're going to have that to kind of pull it tight around the cup. So here you can just see I'm cutting off a piece of plastic wrap, and I'm just going to lay that around the cup here. And at the top there's some tape sticking off. So I'm kind of just going to stick it to that and pull it kind of tight. And I am using Rustoleum's 2X orange here. You can kind of use any color. I thought this one was the one that matched the best with the pumpkins. So I did do that, and I wasn't sure if I was going to glitter the handle or if I was going to put vinyl on it when I first kind of started the cup. I kind of had the idea that I was just going to paint it. I had this Miss Lillian's metallic paints, I'm sorry. And there was a really pretty copper color that I thought would really bring out the orange and the browns all together. And so I originally thought that I would just paint it with that. But then when I got the cup under epoxy, I kind of thought I still want to add a little bit. It was just missing a little bit something. So you can see this is Miss Lillian's metal paints and this is copper. So I am going to put a coat of this on here just to avoid it just being orange. I didn't want to put any glitter on this handle just because I wanted this cup to be a little more simple than that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of metallic paint here. I do love this paint. It looks really pretty over this orange spray paint too. It just gave it just like that little added touch. But then I still wanted something else. I just wasn't completely happy with it. So I'm going to go back in, you'll see later in the tutorial, and I'm going to add another piece of vinyl over the handle. So after I've let that paint dry for about 30 minutes, I'm going to go into my first layer of epoxy, and I'm using Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin, and this cup takes a little bit, y'all. So I mixed up more here because, you know, as y'all know, I'm usually doing more than one cup at a time. But this one takes a good 25 milliliters, I would say. There's a lot of surface area on this cup. I wanted a very thin layer, but this one just takes a little bit. So just because there's so much area on the cup. And then I also wanted a little bit extra because I really like to focus on that handle. I don't usually turn my turner off to mess with the handle, but sometimes I will stop the cup a little bit in my hand. So I just really make sure to smooth up and down all the way around. You can see I try to get under the handle there, and then the first couple of times I just try to cover the cup, and then after I make sure that I've got complete coverage on the actual cup, then I'll go back in and start to kind of smoothing into the handle. So I just run my finger kind of, you know, you can see here I'm running it up under there and then on the top, and I just kind of try to just cover that little, almost it's like I consider it like a little square in my mind, that I go down the vinyl, up the handle, down the vinyl of that, and then over the handle kind of thing. So sometimes I will stop it just to make sure, because I do not want any excess pooling around the bottom of the handle, but I do want to make sure that there's good coverage there. So after I've let the epoxy sit for a few minutes, just because I don't want a lot of movement in the glitter, I am going to come back in with a little bit of black glitter and a little bit of gold here. And today the two glitters that I'm using, one of them is the black is Southern Belle glitter, and it's called Black Soul. And it was just kind of like a little black sparkle. I'd just gotten it in and I wanted to try it, and I thought it turned out really pretty. And so I'm just trying to layer it here where kind of this brush stroke is going around the cup, just to add a little bling to that. And then where there are some gold spots that look like gold glitter in the vinyl, I'm going to go back in with Peachy Olive Glitter's Athena. Y'all know that's my go-to as far as gold glitters go. Either that, Midas, or Vintage are kind of my three favorites in the golder spectrum, kind of depending on what you're going to do with it. But I thought Athena was going to be perfect here. So you can see I'm just adding just a little bit. I'm trying to blend that seam a little bit, and then where there were spots that appeared to be gold on the vinyl, you can see right here, that's where I'm just kind of laying that glitter. And I know y'all seen people epoxy cups. I really just wanted to kind of let it play while I'm working through the handle so you can kind of see. So I just make that motion, you know, up and down like I do on my normal cup. And then I really try to just go up and down and around, and then I kind of go back and under. Like, I really focus on that handle. Sometimes I'll stop it, sometimes I won't, but I really try to make sure that there's no pooling, but that there's really good coverage. So after I let that coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours, I am going to go in with my decal. So I actually layered this decal with a black holographic with the textured gold over it. And then I'm going to go in and cut my strip here for my handle. And I basically just measured how wide it was, and then I laid that down on my Cricut machine, my Cricut cutter, and then I just cut the piece that width because it has the measurements on it. So you can see I'm just kind of laying it down here. I want it to kind of flow in line with the cup. So you can see I've taken another sheet of vinyl, just the very edge of it, and I've cut it to where, you know, the ribbon will line up, and then the pattern will kind of line up with how the cup goes. So I'm just making sure that it's lining up here, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. I just kind of make a notch with my craft knife, and then I'm going to come back and just trim it off with the scissors. But that way I know exactly how long it needs to be, so when I lay it down I can just wrap it around and then it's done, and I can go back and maybe you'd have to trim off a little bit, but I don't want to take this whole, you know, length of this little piece here. I just kind of want just what I need for the handle. So once I've gotten those notched off, you can see I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim off the excess of what I need. And I can see my little marks that I've made with my craft knife. And then I'm just going to go ahead and peel the backing off here, and I'm going to start on one end, and then you can kind of just pull it around, and you know, if it needs to be moved one way or the other, you can move it a little bit. I just wanted it fairly center, but because it does have epoxy on it, it's pretty easy here to just, you know, lift this little piece off if you need to, just to make sure that it's laying down flush on the handle. And then once I get it on there, it lays pretty smooth. So I did put a little glitter on the back side of this handle, but I didn't want any on the top, just so my vinyl would lay. And so you can see where I press it down, there's a little bit excess that I'll end up going back in with my craft knife, and I'm just gonna trim that little part off that's right there next to the cup. And then you really wanna make sure that all that vinyl is laying down, especially where the handles curve around right there. You wanna make sure that the vinyl is pressed down really good, because if not, it will lift when you add epoxy. But so you can see I'm just going to take my craft knife here. I'm just going to trim off just a tiny little bit right where it's laying against the cup, because I don't necessarily need that there. I want it to just be on the handle, not kind of wrapped around to the side of the cup. So you can see there's just a tiny little piece here that I'm going to peel off. And then after I've done with that, and I've got my decal on here, I am going to go into another layer of epoxy. I'm going to use 30 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. And I'm going to do it just like I've done it every other time. I'm going to just make sure that there's good coverage on the majority of the cup, and then after I make sure that the epoxy's smooth on the cup, then I'll go back in to really focus in on the handle. And kind of the same movement, you can see I'm making sure it's under the handle, and then I put a little bit on the handle, but then I'm really going to come back and make sure that I'm smoothing the epoxy on the cup first, and then I'm going to come and kind of focus on that handle. And I know there's a lot of information in here. I really just kind of wanted to focus on laying the vinyl around the handle, the epoxy around the handle, adding the little vinyl piece on there, and so I will list all the products that I use in the description box below, because I know it's been going a little fast, but I really wanted to focus on those things today. But make sure you check out the links in the description box below, and there's also some discount codes included for y'all as well. And then I didn't feel like the bottom was quite ready for me to go ahead and put the decal on the bottom yet. So I just cut another piece out here. I made sure I sanded it down around the edges and there were no places that were rough. And then I'm just gonna take this piece, and it's just a piece of the pattern. There was no really rhyme or reason. I just kind of wanted it to flow from, you know, the same pattern on the cup. And I cut this circle is 3 inches. Just 3 inches by 3 inches. I just did it easy this time, and it fit the bottom. It kind of wrapped right around to cover everything that I needed it to cover. And then I'm going to go back into my final layer of epoxy. And again, I'm going to use 30 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. Focus on the cup, make sure you get the handle covered, and then we're going to go into working on our topper, because I did want to add a topper to this one this time. And I'm just gonna let this cup turn and I'm gonna work on the topper. So I did want to do a little topper. And one of my sweet Facebook group members, Tina, she sent me this little package. She's always sending me little goodies. And this was a little package that she sent me. And I honestly am not sure where she got these from, but I'm sure you could find something similar at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. They were just like a little tiny decoration. I thought they would be perfect for a topper. And then I took a coaster that I had made just out of a coaster mold. I just clear and I had done it green so it would kind of blend in. And then I'm just gonna hot glue these little acrylic things on here. They're kind of like plastic, I guess. But there's really no rhyme or reason how do you do this, y'all. You just kind of have to, I kind of start and just want to fill in the base. And then it had these little orange crystals along with the leaves and the pumpkins. So I just kind of keep playing around with it until I get them all like I want them. No real, you know, this is just kind of like your discretion. This is your creativity coming out in these toppers, but I thought they were fun. It'd be a little fun little add-on to the cup. Then I'm going to take these magnets. This is Magnet Source, and I think they came in a pack of 6, and I got them at Home Depot. And then I'm going to use my UV resin to attach them. If you don't have UV resin and the light to use this, you can definitely use like an E6000. I wanted to be able to remove it off the cup so you could wash, the top, so you could wash the top. So I'm just going to get the batteries attached to, the magnets attached to the top first. And just because this light has a tendency, like sometimes it won't go through different surfaces, so you can put them under there with the top on like that. And then I also turned the top over upside down and use the light again just to make sure that they were securely on there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of UV resin to the top. So I've got 2 magnets stacked on top. And then I'm just going to put the topper on the top of the magnet. So that way, you see what I'm saying? Like there's 2 stacked up. So I've got the bottom one attached to the cup. And then it's not going to go through that surface of the topper. So I just turned it upside down because it would go through there. But like I said, if you don't have UV resin, you can definitely use like an E6000 glue. So I hope that you guys enjoy how this turned out. I love it. It was so much fun. I'm not normally a topper person, but I saw these and I thought I've got to do something with these. Some sweet little Tina gave me. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. As always, ask any questions. Please join my Facebook group, Dixie Darlings Tumblers. We go live every Sunday night. We have so much fun. It's a great time for me to interact with y'all and hear what you want. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun, crazy stuff. Please hit the bell button so you don't miss my future tutorials, and don't miss the description box below so you get all my discount codes and links. And I'll see y'all again soon.